Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to WCS European Challenger. We are hopping into our final series of Europe before we move into North America. My name is Fear Dragon, and I am joined by the illustrious, the very handsome-looking Cats.
Well, thank you. And this is going to be a match for the ages. It's a rematch. It's for all the marbles. There's no more second chances here. You take it or you don't. You're in or you're out.
Yes, indeed, and we're going to talk about that rematch in a moment, but we want to remind you guys that there are a lot of other events coming up in StarCraft. We thought we'd just list them out over here for you guys. You guys can see, of course, GSL is going on. We got Copa America going on for the Latin American scene. We got, of course, WCS Challenger for the ANZ scene. For the Challenger is going to be happening over at IM Sydney. And, of course, WCS Austin. Cats.
Yes,
the WCS events are a lot of fun.
They sure are. I love them, especially those at Austin. I mean, there's not that many events in North America, really. So Austin is a great opportunity. If you are in North America, go to Austin. It's fantastic, and it's going to be packed of exciting StarCraft.
Lots of really awesome stuff. And I know some people even doing interviews. Zombie Grub said she was going to be doing a bunch of interviews at Austin, so I'm really looking forward to that as well. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, some of the people that actually, one of my favorite interviews that I ever got to do was with Harstem, who's now going to be facing off versus Stephano once again. And, Cats, I don't know if you're familiar with the group curse. This is like a well-documented thing. I'm pretty sure there's a Team Liquid thread about it, where whoever wins in the first match, if it goes to the decider match and they play versus that same player again, they inevitably end up losing to that player. This is just like a documented effect that always seems to happen, even sometimes when it causes really weird and crazy upsets.
That sounds pretty crazy to me. I mean, but at this point in time, you still have to favor Harstem. I think he lost 2-1, but he is the favorite going into this. It wouldn't be so much an upset if the curse was to be...
It was just warm-up time for that first... I mean, he played really well in that series versus Stephano as well. It wasn't like...
Stephano looked way stronger in CVP than CVC. They're completely different matchups, completely different sets of skills required for either one of them. And Stephano just tactically in CVP, he was on top of everything. So I wouldn't be surprised. I am rooting for a 3-game series here. But I think the Vlardigan Giant's going to take it.
Yeah, and of course, if you guys did miss out on some of the earlier series that we've already covered today, if you're a North American just waking up on the West Coast bright and early for WCS, well, then you did miss a laser taking the 2-1 versus Mana. Don't let that deceive you. Those are actually really, really close and really cool and fun games. We, of course, already have alluded to Stephano taking the 2-1 versus Harstem in some crazy macro-oriented games. We had Harstem taking the 2-1 versus Mana in those PvPs in the losers side of the bracket. And then the winner's side, of course, we just saw a laser dominate Stephano 2-0 before we hop into this final decider match to see who was the last player, the final slot to make it off to the playoffs for EU Challenger.
Indeed, it was not a good series for Stephano to just have finished. Let's say that. I mean, the first game was close, but the second one not so much. And now he's having to go against a player that's, I think, of equal caliber or close to a laser. Also known as El Capitan, apparently. He basically stole my nickname that Roddy gave me so many years ago. So, yeah, he is El Capitan now. And you type 07 in chat if you're rooting for Harstem. That is his thing. He's been spreading it. Very jovial guy. And what should they type for Stephano?
What should they type for Stephano? That's a good question. Just type, it's IL, right? Ilias? ILL?
Yeah.
So I always like to think that the beginning of his name is like a barcode.
Oh, he's the illest?
So you just type in, you can type in like any kind of combination of a barcode for 3 letters.
Or just type ill because
or just type ill. He is pretty ill.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. I hope he's not actually ill. He's been spending a lot of time in Korea as well, and I know he was there with a laser at the Unity House run by No Regret, so that's pretty awesome, and I know he's been getting some really good training and practice there, but yeah, as opposed to Harstem, who I think has been traveling around for things like Nation Wars, but has primarily been staying in Europe.
That is a good point. I mean, he has a lot of stage experience. That counts for something, but like you said, sometimes the grind is more important. Sometimes you see players perform, but at the same time, they feel a certain amount of release when they perform well, like they were preparing for something in particular, like maybe Harstem was preparing for this Nation Wars. It really seemed to have shown. And after that, it might be a period of release for him. I really hope not. It was recent enough that I think he should be able to stay in shape for this upcoming match. but it's anyone's game.
Yeah, really is. Could go either way on this one because, as we said, both of these players have played really, really well today.
And the real winner is you guys,
the
because you
fans.
get Stephano or Harstem advancing, and you're gonna get a best of 3.
You know, Rapid always gets me with that one because he'll always say like, okay, who do you think is gonna win, Beyond, SOS, or the fans? He always said the fans afterwards, and I always forget he's gonna say it. And I'm like, damn you.
Or the fans at the end.
Actually, he's one of those people who'll do like Twitter polls and stuff. But ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested in catching more StarCraft action, there is also IEM Sydney coming on up. That's where WCS Challenger ANZ is going to be happening for, of course, all those Australian players like Probe and Iagas and Seether, etc.
Aussie.
Yeah. Pretty fun scene.
Come on, you have to say oi, oi, oi.
Oi, oi, oi. It's been a while since home started cup. It's been a
That's
while.
why I just said the oi, oi, oi. When I was with Nate, I was like, oi, oi, oi. Like, why do you need the Aussie at all? Just people know, you know, oi, oi, oi. That's what's up.
Yeah. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing, you know, my boys Probe. Probe is such a fun player to watch, especially because he is just so willing to experiment and play around with new units and stuff. He is always one of those players that I feel like comes to an event and he'll just have like something. He'll always have something sort of special and unique prepared.
Absolutely, he's a very hard worker. He was just at the Root House for a while, like I mentioned earlier, and I think he's probably the favorite to take this event. Yeah. So I would like to see him perform. Obviously, a little bit of bias there. Right. I would also love
ladies
to see
and gentlemen,
Iagas' Zerg though.
Yeah. We are just waiting on Stephano right now, in case you're wondering. I know Katz and I love to talk, but we're also hoping to get into the game soon, since I think Stephano just wants a bit of a break. He just played a couple of long series, and exactly what you were talking about before, Katz, I really want to actually touch upon this, is that it is kind of rough that you end up going from the situation where you just came off of this really tough loss versus a top-level player like a Laser, and Harstem is coming off of his victory versus his opponent. So,
and that might have to do with a curse too. Like this momentum is a real thing. It's a mentality, right? If you're coming off of a victory, you're done. You feel good, you forget about it. You're coming off of a loss, it's in your head, right? It's like, I could have won. Like that feeling is difficult to shake off, and that's why we take a little bit of a break. Stephano, very experienced. I think that, you know, he wants to reset, and reset he is. As in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, El Capitan, Flaming Lips, Vlardigan Giant, Harstem!
And his opponent up here in the top left, we have the blue Zerg player. An epic player of epic proportions, has gotten so many accolades to his name at this point. He's looking for another one. Give it up for Stephano.
Lifeline here for both of these boys. It's gonna be a bloody one, I think, Ravi.
Yeah, and based on like their last series against each other, they were both pretty okay with playing those very macro-oriented games. And guess what, Cats? Every single game of the last series, Harstem opens up with an Nexus first.
Straight away, and at this point, I think Stephano just has to catch on to this. I mean, next game, if I'm Stephano, I don't care what the map is, I'm going for a 12 pool, possibly into a proxy hatch or something like that, because he's getting away with this every game for the 4th time in a row now.
Yeah, I really wonder if there's just this kind of, I don't know, decision from Harstem to say like, you know, I'm prepared for the early pools, or Stephano never does these to me, so I'm okay with it. There's got to be some mind games, because these players, I'm sure they play each other all the time on the ladder and stuff, or have at least played each other on the ladder a decent bit before.
Yeah, I mean the 12 pool is still holdable, even with the wall off at the front, but it's pretty difficult to go Nexus first, I find.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes, especially some of these maps in the map pool, I think occasionally you can get caught a bit off guard if you just don't see it coming for a really long time, if you don't get that really quick probe scout to the other side of the map. But he does see it is just a hatch gas pool. Stephano not planning any shenanigans, at least not yet. He's getting up 2 lings, just going back to droning.
Yeah, and he will not continue to mine gas past 100, it seems, so he will be getting the ling speed as soon as he wants.
Yeah, just leaving a single drone on gas.
For now, this might be Overlord speed instead. He's, I think, trying to give himself some options.
Okay, yeah, he is going to go for the Zergling speed and also get up that 3rd base. So, yeah, I like that idea, though. Just kind of giving yourself a couple options if you see something a little bit weird as the Overlord.
Same thing, you can always kind of cancel it, too. You could just start it earlier, but you know, it's very difficult to break a Protoss anyway, so the link speed is mostly going to be a defensive measure, and upon seeing that there's a Nexus first in play, I don't know, I still like the link speed. I mean, there's going to be adepts out. I think it's a little bit of an oversight, and something that when you click on your speed and you're like, oh man, that was a little bit late, these adepts could actually make him pay for it, right? There's a 5-second window where he should have had link speed, and he didn't have link speed. That's big.
Okay, well, Adepts making their way across the map. Stargate on the follow-up here. No surprises for Stephano, as he has the Overlord over this. And you know what? You probably would have been anticipating it even if he didn't have the Overlord. But interestingly enough, the Adepts not even going to try and make their way over to his opponent's side of the map. Just pulls him back. He knows that Zergling Speed is going to be finishing up relatively shortly because he went for that Nexus first. It's not exactly quite as easy to get the damage done with those Adepts.
Yeah, it's not just about the damage, it's the fact that he decides to take a very, very fast third. With this Oracle and with those two Adepts, he just can't afford to lose them, right? He's going to tuck him in between a Pylon and the Nexus just to avoid having more surface or giving more surface area to those links, avoid getting surrounded. And this is an extremely fast third by Harstem, who has been playing very, very greedy against Zerg and mostly getting away with it. Now Stephano, also a very greedy player on all ends, so we're setting up for another macro game, it seems.
Okay, well, this is the first scout that Stephano gets of a super quick third base coming out. So now the Zlings have seen it. What is his reaction going to be? For now, he has that Roach Horn already on the way. He's getting up his lair tech, but where's his larva going to be going? As he is going to have to deal with the Oracle during all this as well. And it looks like he just goes straight up into drones again.
Absolutely. A Forge being made by Harstem, so that's going to be mostly for upgrades. I'm sure we'll see a cannon here and there.
Okay, Revelation thrown down. He sees the Hydra Den being plopped down, so this is pretty typical play as well, but the Lings make their way in. Not going to be able to find too much, and there is a Stalker plugging up the hold-out wall, so it doesn't seem like Harstem is going to be broken anytime shortly, but he might lose a probe or two over here.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Harstem has seen any roaches, but there is a roach warren also. So upon seeing the Hydra, then he might think he has a timing that doesn't exist. That said, he did go greedy, and just now is starting the charge slots as well as the +1, so it's unlikely for him to attack. But that kind of thing could be deceitful, right? Where you see a Hydra, then you haven't seen any roaches, you maybe think, oh, my opponent's trying to be too greedy and try to maybe warp in too many Adepts, try to commit into roaches, and that could be deadly. So.
Yeah, and he actually does end up losing a handful of his Adepts, trying to move in there, and the Roaches just catch him, immediately picking him off.
I don't know how many that was, I wasn't actually paying attention. But
he lost, I think, 5 or 6 or so.
Yeah, that's
two.
exactly what I was
just two. But still, it's Stephano, he's only sitting on 49 workers. He's just pumping out non-stop Roaches, so I think you're absolutely onto something. He wants to not just put on a little bit of light pressure, and Harstem, he just saw the lack of saturation over by that third base. That is the first most important reveal. He just recalls.
I love it. I mean, he's going to need these units for defense. He doesn't want to waste any more time or effort in killing workers because he has the economic lead already. He has secured the economic lead. He needs to defend. A lot of other players might be like, oh, I can kill more workers. You don't need to kill more workers. You need to make sure that you do not die.
Okay, he's not going to use up his energy to go after these Roaches immediately. He maybe wants to use them for some stasis trap potential later on.
Or the link reinforcements, perhaps. But there's not many things here. The Immortal and the Sentries are going to get caught. Nice micro by Harstem. Ow! Protects the Immortal. A beautiful set of force fields by Harstem. In desperation, didn't just drop those force fields. He dropped them after the Immortal went in and got shielded by them. That was a brilliant move by Harstem, and this is going to hold the attack.
Yeah, I was a little bit skeptical because the Sentries have the Roaches right on top of him. It looks really scary, but you're right, he keeps the Immortal alive, and now the Oracle's picking off Roach after Roach. And yes, Stephano has been able to drone up behind this, but it is at the cost of the fact that he now doesn't have any almost standing army to really speak of compared to Harstem, who can invest in both his economy and his tech and his workers all at the same time, just a little bit slower than Stephano.
What a beautiful maneuver by Harstem, really. I want to stress on that because he saw the opportunity, right? And you could tell that he was moving his army, so it's not like he forgot to force field or that he wasn't fast enough to force field. He was hovering over his army, he was moving it. He had the opportunity to force field, just, you know, panic like I think most Protoss players, even at the highest level, would do. It's like, I'm about to lose the Sentries, I might as well force field, right?
Yeah.
That's what I would do. But Harstem, no. He identifies the Immortal is in trouble, takes a little bit of a risk in that the Sentries are not going to die in time, and gets those force fields, saves the Immortal, saves his third. Beautiful defense.
Okay, Lurker Den on the way behind this for Stephano. as he is getting ready to move into that next stage of the game. He's been able to resaturate some of those bases that he didn't quite have the same saturation that he needed before, but at 79 workers, he's going to be pretty solid. And now the big concern is going to be about Harstem, who has a very scary potential here to maybe do some damage. He doesn't actually have as scary of an army as I thought he would. He does have charge, he does have +1 weapons. Okay, there are the Archons, and there is also Storm being researched, so this is where I think Harstem can maybe at least poke forward and scare Stephano a little bit.
Definitely, Harstem's continuing to tech. Stephano wants to get to those lurkers. That's going to be his safe haven once he gets to that. Harstem, in the meanwhile, he's not slowing down. He's teching, he's securing his bases, he's making more cannons, he's making more bases. He's getting set up for the late game. He's using this little advantage that he secured himself by stopping that attack, even though it wasn't that committed of an attack from Stephano. I think that Stephano decided that he wasn't going to kill Harstem, so we didn't see link reinforcements. Instead, he droned up, right? And this is the brilliance of Stephano himself. It's like, okay, he scouted me early enough that I'm gonna poke in with the roaches that I've already made, but I'm not gonna overcommit to this attack. And in doing that, he kind of sets himself up to continue moving forward in this game.
Yeah, and it's just that foresight that he has. I want to emphasize that he makes that decision before the attack even begins. So he has the foresight to know how much damage he's realistically going to be able to do there, and that is what allows him to kind of get back into this economically favorable position.
A lot of players will just blindly commit to the attack that they were planning, like follow the plan is a thing that players are really bound to a lot of the time, and it's oftentimes not the best thing to do. Sometimes you have to break the plan and adjust accordingly.
Okay, these Zealots getting some pretty good damage done. The Lings all swarming over to the bottom right-hand side because they see 2 Zealots moving into the right, and that does leave the main base a little bit more exposed. The Hydras finally retreat on back with a War Prism still warping in. Zealot after Zealot after Zealot while Harstem moves on to creep.
Yeah, and this is what that is doing exactly. The Harstem moves on to creep is the key word here as he gains position potentially on these lurkers, and he moves into an undefended 4th base from Stephano. The lurkers will come here, but will they be in time? Will they be able to work to... I don't think so.
No, not in time to save the hatchery, and Storm also blankets a handful of these Hydras. It's going to be difficult for them to move through this choke point. Force shields also make it even more awkward as they try and move through. 3rd base getting ravaged by Zealots. Harstem is doing what does Stephano.
He is in the zone, exactly. Look, what Harstem did there was fantastic. He identified Stephano as dealing with the other attack, and that he was just attack moving. So what he does is he force fields and then holds the choke. Stephano would any other day would just back away from that choke, but he's not looking there, and Harstem identifies that and takes advantage of it.
Man, Stephano is just getting pulled apart, which is so funny. This is exactly what he did to Harstem in their last series, and now Harstem is the one doing it so effectively. He even catches a bunch of these units with the stasis trap. He's still been able to keep alive all of these Immortals. His War Prism is still in the main base, Cats. He's still warping in more Zealots.
This is a man in the zone right now. How do you stop him?
You need to unplug his music, Cats. There's no other way.
Yeah, he's gigantic.
Oh my god, the Zealots are eventually getting cleaned up. But again, there's even just still that other little Zealot confirming there's no real damage happening over there. The Lurkers do get set up in a really nice spot, but it is just a problem that I don't think there are enough units here for Stephano. Definitely not enough of a buffer. He does kill a lot of the Immortals, but he does get eventually pushed back.
He does get pushed back, and now Harstem with a significant advantage, and after having taken down the 4th of Stephano. Stephano trying to reestablish another base, but I mean at this point this base is spread out, it's nearly dead, and spread out means that you can't easily defend it with lurkers either, right? If you have condensed 4 bases like you would on other maps, maybe you stand a chance to come back by just turtling. On this map and in this situation, I don't see Stephano taking it.
Okay, a couple of these High Templars building up that energy, about to get Storm once again. Harstem is not ending the kind of run-by harassments as he continues to send a couple of Zealots around the outskirts of the map to get some minor amounts of damage. And I love this. He doesn't send in 30 Zealots or 10 Zealots or something. He's just sending in 2 at a time repeatedly. And it's sometimes not even the first wave or the second wave or even the 3rd wave of Zealots that get the damage done. It's the 4th or the 5th wave of 2 Zealots. And guess what? Stephano's just out of position that time.
Yeah, absolutely, Ravi.
Well, I think the Lurker drilling upgrade for those Lurkers to burrow extra quick has just been researched. And now Stephano is spreading himself across the map on the bottom left as well as the top right. These Hydras...
Oh, man, that Storm.
Oh, God, they get covered by that one storm. The cannons are going to go down eventually, but this gives Harstem time to react. Harstem also able to pick off that hatchery. That's going to be game. And Harstem takes the first game in this best of 3.
That was not a clinic, that was the whole hospital, Ravi. By Harstem, just out of this world. He played that game amazingly.
That was
And that was on the back of like great decision-making from Stephano. I mean, this series is just not disappointing at all. These two, butting heads, butting hands, butting everything.
It's definitely pretty impressive. And Harstem is, I feel like, just playing, like you said this before, he is playing out of his mind right now. He is playing so well. And not that he played all that poorly in the first series, but he's just playing so much better than the first series.
He's warmed up, man. He's warmed up. He's coming from a victory, like you mentioned, the momentum. It's important. Stephano coming from a loss could be difficult to process, right? Again, you have that loss in your head. You're like, I could have been released or maybe game 1. It's a blessing and a curse that it didn't go to 3 games, because then it really bothers you, or that the series wasn't closer. But my God, Harstem, just a couple of moments there that were absolutely brilliant, and Stephano had some of those too.
Yeah, Stephano has definitely also been able to play pretty well throughout the series so far, in the last series. And that last game, I mean, like you said, he had some really good moments there, but it did feel like, this is going back to what you talked about in the last time they played, where the aggressor is the one that's kind of dictating the pace of when your opponent has to deal with certain actions. In this situation, Harstem is the one getting hyper-aggressive with all these kind of different run-bys of Zealots and moving the main force in, the Warp Prism comes around, and he is the one that's saying, okay, when I have free actions, I'm going to trigger all these things. And now, when it's inconvenient for you, you're going to have to deal with all of them. And it's the advantage of being the aggressor.
Yes, I mean, there is an advantage to being the aggressor as well, and that doesn't get pointed out often enough. But that is kind of what you gain with map control as well. Yeah. The possibilities, if you control the map, if you control the vision on the map, you're coming from wherever you want to come, right? And that's the control that Stephano had in the first game. This time around, and off the back of a failed attack, even though he established a good economy, I think that Harstem got that advantage, and he didn't let go of it.
Okay. Well, next map is going to be Neon Violet Square for game number 2.
And these two are going to square off.
You know, I saw someone in the chat earlier asking why this map was... Or no, they asked, what are those squares in the middle? And I said, well, it's a Neon Violet Square because there are Neon Violet Squares on it. So the map maker decided to be as literal as possible and say, well, we'll just call it Neon Violet Square.
And the map is a square.
Is it though? Yeah, is it though?
It's contained within a square.
I think it's a rectangle. That's not a square, right? It has to be equal on all sides.
Well, the minimap is contained within a square.
Is it though?
Yes, every map is contained within the minimap on the.
All right. Fair enough. Okay. Well, spawning down here in the bottom right, we have our blue Zerg player. Put your hands together for, of course, Stephano.
Flaming is this man, and he wants to get out of this group badly. It is Harstem, Home Story Cup champion. What was the GPL champion? Asterion champion.
Who else is on Asterion?
I think it's a Netherlands team, so I believe it's just Harstem is their sole StarCraft representative.
Yeah, I guess that does make him the champion.
Makes him the champion, undisputable.
Yeah, I know he is, at least to my knowledge, the most notable player on Asterion. But, okay. Guess what, cats? We got yet another Nexus first. Fearless.
Fearless he is. And like I was saying, at this point, I think if you're Stephano, you have to try those early pulls. Just 12 pull, try it, you know? I guess now his life is on the line, so.
Yeah, now it gets really difficult. I agree with what you're saying, though, because in the first series, it's like, oh, he did it 2 games in a row. It seems like a trend, but what happens if he mixes it up? Like, this is the mind game that he's playing. Yeah. Third game, he changes up. In this one, now we've seen 4 different instances of it.
5.
Yeah, this is now the 5th. So this is where you kind of say, okay, if this goes to an ace match, game number 3, I would love to see Stephano really trying to capitalize on this, because it's no longer just the mind game.
Yeah, and I would love nothing more than for Stephano to make the right call, only for Harstem to somehow squash it.
Yeah, that will be like the one game. Somehow we'll find out that game 3 was abiogenesis, and Harstem is just gonna like proxy gate him or something. Cannon rush, who knows?
That would be the way. Quick link speed for Stephano. Harstem with the exact same opener as every other game. But even though the openings and the paths that these players seem to be confident to take against each other are pretty similar, these games have had their individual moments where, you know, the different players are taking different advantages.
It's deviated a lot from
Yes.
each other. Absolutely. None of these games have looked entirely identical, and it's none of the mistakes or I won't even say advantages have been the exact same every game.
This is, I think, the first game where Harstem opens with an Adept and a Stalker as opposed to 2 Adepts. And he still is going for the Stargate. And this could be very deceitful, because when I see this, I think, well, you haven't been opening with Adepts or with Stalkers. Maybe you're going for a Robo or Dark Shrine or some other different deck. But Harstem's actually still going for the Stargate. Stephano goes for an Evo Chamber. That's got to be for early upgrades. I would guess Circling upgrades, just because he doesn't have access to any other tech at the moment. Yeah,
this early Evo Chamber, he's been going for some of the earlier Evo Chambers, but this, I think, is a little bit earlier than the previous ones.
Yeah, and I don't like this one bit, actually. Reason being that Harstem is taking the Pocket expansion. I'm not sure if he took the outside expansion, but I think what Stephano is looking to do with this was to flood links at the third when the +1 finishes. Otherwise, it's such a huge investment, right, to be made at this point in time. The supply is fairly low still. We're only like 3 minutes into the game when he drops that Evo Chamber. And it's an expensive one. I mean, it's 125 resources plus the upgrade, another 200 resources. That's 325 resources committed into the future to have that upgrade to try to hit a timing with.
Okay, well, Oracle makes its way across the map. The Spore Crawlers are already finished inside the main base and the natural, as well as even by the third, it's starting to finish on up. So Oracle unlikely to get a ton of damage done, but usually can find in poke and prod. I think there's even some stray drones that are a little bit more vulnerable in the gas geyser. He's not going to make his way in. In fact, he does also follow up with a Phoenix, so he can lift up one of the queens and just pick off some overlords here and there.
Yeah, a little bit of an odd decision, seeing as he opened with the Stalker to kill the first Overlord, so I'm not sure that he's going to be able to find that many Overlords, but of course he might have a good reason for the Phoenix. It's still going to aid against the queens, like you said, and Stephano has been keeping an eye on this potential fourth. Now, if Harstem does take this fourth, and he has been rather greedy in taking them, Stephano does have a timing potential with those links.
And he is making more and more of those Zerglings as we speak. He's only sitting on 48 workers. And he's got his lair coming up, but it's definitely on the later side. Now he comes in with the Lings. Oracles do spot this out, though. They're going to be able to retreat back home and not be on the wrong side of the map for this. This may be enough to help defend over here. A probe does go down. Oracle's not activating their pulsar beams. Only one active. Oh, this is actually so smart from Harstem.
Yes. Yes, very good. So Stephano was doing what we were talking about a little bit ago. Once you turn on that pulsar beam, there's an extra cost for turning it on, right? So you can't consistently do that. If you turn on both pulsar beams, Stephano just backs away, pokes again, like he's doing right now. If you turn on the next pulsar beam, maybe he backs away again, like he's doing right now. And now he's bought so much time by virtue of just not using all his energy, but turning one on to say, Stephano, go away. If you stay, I'll kill you. And man, if this attack doesn't pan off for Stephano, he's going to be in some trouble.
At this point, there's still a little bit of energy left over on that Oracle, so he can buy time at least one more time. Gateway does get canceled. I mean, minor annoyances that Stephano is just trying to find to get some value out of these Lings that he made. But at the end of the day, Harstem has his gateways now. He has his upgrades going. He's in a good spot. And he's been able to warp in enough units that just a small number of Lings are not going to be enough to threaten him.
Absolutely not. So the timing goes out the window for Stephano. He was hoping to find those units maybe pre-pylon. He gets a surround on those Adepts. All of a sudden, a cancel on the fourth. If Harstem continues to commit, if he had only made one Oracle, or if he used both Oracles, like we were mentioning, he might be in trouble. He might lose that fourth. But as is, Stephano in a little bit of trouble. Now, what is his recovery option here? He goes for the +2 melee, right? A natural progression. With that, he's gonna have access to one-shotting probes. So we're most likely going to see some Baneling run-bys as well as potentially drops.
Yeah, the Baneling drops I think could be very effective. This is one of those maps where you can also move into the main base as well as that fourth base, and maybe if you're really even clever about it, move into that back base and you sneak an Overlord past the main base and really just put on pressure from so many different angles that it's difficult for a Protoss player to really deal with all of the different Baneling drops at the exact same time.
Definitely. I mean, it's going to be difficult to sneak past the outer bases, so Harstem mostly has to look out for these Baneling drops and the Baneling drop potential. If he has identified that there is +1, his senses must be tingling. His spider senses must be like, okay, +2 potential, what does that mean? How do I prepare, right? Don't let him get into your middle bases, into your back bases. Just defend your outer bases because that's where the Overlords have to come in.
Ooh, Hydra's in the main base, Hydra's in the low ground. Able to get some damage done, but man, Harstem doing a great job navigating these oracles through thick and thin.
Are these Hydras tagged up? It is so scary for me as a Circ player.
Oh, one of them is, or a handful of them.
In the back.
Yeah.
And Stephano is actually committing to this attack. A lot of the time it's difficult to commit when you know that your opponent knows what your positioning is, knows what your army composition is, because that allows your opponent to basically decide if they want to or not, if they want to take this engagement or not. Stephano will be hitting with +2. This is not easy by any means. Sentries are going to be instrumental here to try and prevent the Banelings, but Stephano so smart, just sending a few Banelings to poke, to force out the first force fields, and oh my god! Then come the rest of the Banelings, and he's done it!
GG, Stephano takes Harstem by surprise, manages to net himself a victory in that second game.
Hardly by surprise, but man, what do you do if you're Harstem there? It's such a difficult decision that Stephano forced them into. He basically sent just enough Banelings, maybe 4 or 5, so that if they get to the sentries are dead. Yeah. So you have to force field. Those sentries are waiting to force field, and then after that comes the brunt of the Banelings. Once those force fields are about to wear out, once the sentries can't possibly protect his army as well, and man.
I mean, and it also comes back down to the fact that Storm was seconds away from finishing just before the fight started. So instead, he gets Storm, I want to say, 4 or 5 seconds into the fight. So by that point, the Banelings and the Lings and the Hydras have already closed the distance. They've created their massive concave. And you imagine in a situation where you're talking about those Banelings that are charging forward, imagine if all of those have been weakened up by running through a Storm and then an Archon gets one shot off.
You're
looks
absolutely
totally different.
Right about that. That is an excellent point to make here. I mean, if those force fields, if Stephano doesn't send those Banelings in front, if those force fields go off, Harstem has more than enough time for that.
Yeah.
Now we have Storms on the Banelings rather than the Hydras. The Banelings are doing so much damage in the front, especially with that +2.
Yeah, really, really well done. Very crisply executed over there by Stephano. He's able to net himself the victory there. But that does mean we get ready to hop into a game number 3 now. This is it. Caps, we kept talking about this. If Harstem goes for that Nexus first again, I would love to see Stephano try to find a way to punish this. Because like you said, it's possible to deal with the early pool aggression as a Protoss player going for the Nexus first, but it's difficult. It's so hard.
Absolutely. We'll see what Stephano chooses to do with everything on the line. I mean, he's looked confident, he's looked strong. For the first time, we saw him mix it up. He didn't go for that Lurker style, he went for the Hydra Bane. It worked out for him. Will he do that again? I feel like Harstem has more or less figured out what the other route that Stephano takes is, and now in having seen that Stephano is capable of not just doing something else, but executing it as well as he did, that's gotta be scary. That puts thoughts in your head. You know, you're Harstem, you're freaking out. You're like, oh my god, what is he gonna do?
All right, well, spawning up here in the top right, we have our blue Zerg player. Able to tie up the series 1-1, it's Stephano.
07's in the chat. If you want this guy to stick around, it is Harstem. A brilliant series, Ravi. My favorite in a long time.
Yeah, this has been a pretty awesome day of StarCraft in general. Like, we haven't really had any major blowout series. I feel even though the closest thing to it was maybe a Laser versus Stephano, but even that was, I think, pretty entertaining to watch.
Yeah, absolutely was. Especially that first game was a very good game. Second one, not the closest.
Second one, yeah,
we've gone down to the wire almost every single match today.
Yeah, it's been a good day. I mean, I feel like we've had a bit of a curse in some of the earlier other groups where it was a lot of 2-0s on one way or the other, especially Group C for NA and EU, I felt like was a lot of 2-0s, but today has been a lot of 2-1s.
Yeah, and this extended series between Harstem and Stephano, do not be confused by MOG extended series if you were around for that long. But
Yeah, you're sending a couple of shivers down the spines of a lot of those old players.
Yeah, the 6th game, Ravi, and it's for all of it. Stephano won the first series 2-1 in a great best of 3. We have another one in our hands here.
Yep, making to the playoffs, whoever can win this game, that not only comes with a little bit of a prize money bump, it also comes with those very valuable WCS points of making it to the playoffs, help you out with seeding for the rest of the year. Your life is just easier for the rest of the year if you can get those WCS points nice and early on.
No, your life is easier, Ravi.
Your face's life is a little
Excuse
easier.
me?
What are we playing?
Are you laughing again, Ravi, at what you were laughing at the other time? Should we tell Ravi so people know your true nature?
Oh no, let's keep my true nature hidden for a little bit.
Oh.
I still have some positive fans out there, people who look at me in like a positive light. Oh yeah, good guy Fear Dragon, he's a nice guy.
Yeah, good guy Fear Dragon.
I think
until he starts laughing at your nipples.
Oh.
He just, you know, he could see them through my shirt. We're talking. He starts
Well, you don't
laughing
wear an
at them.
undershirt, man.
Yeah.
Okay, well this is an argument I get into with Roddy also at events.
Oh,
'Cause
really?
He has made fun of me for wearing an undershirt at events. But then Nate and I are the undershirt wearers.
Well, Nate's wearing the
Nate's wearing the V-neck.
the V-necks, yeah.
Yeah, he hides it well.
He hides it well.
Okay, well, it didn't seem like we got any kind of punishment from Stephano of the Nexus first. He's not going to opt to take that risk in the final game of the European day.
And Harstem, once again, Oracle opener, potentially a second, maybe not. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't mind seeing just one Oracle, but they're great in defense too.
He didn't just go for, he went for not even Zealot Adept, he went for Zealot, oh sorry, he didn't go for Adept Stalker, he went for Zealot Stalker this game.
This could be a tell in itself. I mean, that Zealot is pretty much useless unless you end up going for a more or less quick charge. But there is an Adept being produced now for scouting.
Yeah, and going for the Zealot.
Or for something. I'm not sure what this Adept is going to do. I mean, he might just help out in
the Oracle, you mean, or?
No, the Adept. I'm not sure what his role is. There's the wall is already locked. He's rallying it to the natural, so I suppose that makes sense to tuck it in between the Zealot and the Pylon.
Yeah, it can still be useful for that, and I guess you could still maybe move it across the map at some point for just some basic level scouting, but yeah, it's likely to be vulnerable at this point, because now circling speed is finished up, the Oracle is pretty much going to do that job anyways. He sees a handful of these lings making their way across the map, so he's going to be a bit wary about defending this third base. 13 lings now out.
This is bad positioning for that Adept, by the way. When I said tuck it, you know, he should tuck it behind the Zealot. It's a minor detail, but the Zealot's not gonna attack if that Adept gets engaged on. See, this is exactly what I mean. The Zealot should be attacking, and then you have both units attacking if that happens.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The Zealot not going to be quite as useful, and that's the kind of disadvantage of having that melee unit as opposed to, I think, just having two Adepts there, which you oftentimes will have. But, okay, Revelation thrown down, sees the Hydra Den in the main base, sees pretty much everything he needs to spot out. Of course, we go back to some of the previous games where he doesn't really know if there's a Roach Warren or something, and there's going to be some big, massive flood of units, but for the most part, it's just more drones as well as a handful of these Hydras being made.
Yeah, and that's important to note because Stephano just found success, and in, I would say, a pretty convincing way with that Hydra Bane. That said, the Storms didn't hit on what they needed to hit, like you pointed out, so will Harstem be ready this time around if Stephano was to go for something similar? I mean, Stephano does have an Evo Chamber coming up himself, so he may not be looking for to attack for a while. I still wouldn't be surprised to see the Lurker then.
Yeah, I really like this, though. Harstem is able to get the Revelation down on top of that third base, so he spots out the saturation at the third, which is super important to be able to identify that and making sure that... okay. I was going to say, being able to identify you're not about to just face off against a massive all-in or something off of... Oh, okay. Does keep the second Oracle alive. That's... You just need to keep at least one Oracle alive. You can lose an Oracle, that's fine. It's not ideal, but keeping the second Oracle alive is a must.
Most def. And we're gonna have the Templar Archives finishing here. Storm could be expected as we see Stephano now, utilizing perhaps the Oracles to Harstem's disadvantage, because this is the amount of army that's tagged, and beforehand, what Stephano did was very strongly reinforce this army, look for an all-in type play, in just moving out, he might be forcing Harstem to be overly defensive. We see a cannon dropped in response, and maybe delaying of the fort, right? That kind of thing that we can't really.
I love this. This is, I mean, this is the equivalent of a Protoss or Terran moving out against a Zerg as a sort of fake move out, just to force some extra units to be made, and then just retreating back home. And that's kind of what Stephano's doing by using, like you said, that Revelation. So really, really nice play there. But Harstem's not going to fall prey to it for too long. He does go for his own 4th base, is going to see that the Nox were, in fact, knocked down. And his Storm is going to be finishing up soon, and he'll feel a lot safer then. Yeah,
the Nox were definitely rocked down, Ravi. I am a fan of that. But yeah, and in doing that, Stephano's going to open up to quickly cancel this fort.
Yeah, the rocks not being there really does make this base a lot more annoying to defend, especially when it's still being made, so you don't really have enough units to actually place out or around different sort of parts of the map. I do like that there's this one Adept over here that's going to spot out not only the Revelation, Lings, and Hydras, but he's just going to be able to spot out the entire army and the size of it, etc. So he knows how much to split off there. He's in fact just delaying that 4th base even longer. Is he just going to opt not to make the 4th? He's going to try and grab the top left?
I would much rather him take the top left. I think it's a chokier area. He's going to be condensed.
Oh man, good save there from Harstem. I think he's going to end up losing the Zelt, unfortunately, but he keeps the War Prism alive, which is super important.
Yeah, so Harstem again looking for where the attention of Stephano was, right? If Stephano is looking at those Hydras, obviously there's no way he goes in further. But if Stephano just assumes, oh, my Hydras are going to beat the Zealot, so I'll just look elsewhere, then that's when he gets the opportunity to pick things up. So good moves on both players' side.
Okay, War Prism is just going to retreat all the way back home after not being able to find too many opportunities to attack in there. And Stephano's creep spread is getting pretty good. He's also moving into that 4th base. He's going to be able to force a cancel. Once again, the Baneling's leading the charge. Storm is finished up over here for Harstem, but
Harstem's just not ready to take an engagement right now. And this can be the type of nerves or just chills that you get because everything can be determined, and it can be such a strong mental game if one player is willing to risk and the other one isn't. Now Harstem will be in a better position, but man, I mean, this base is extremely difficult to defend once the rocks are taken down. Look, Stephano is going to come from both high grounds, and Harstem immediately has to give up the position that he just gained, or thought he gained. This Baneling's going to be nasty. Harstem with Desperation Storms. That was 2 storms too many.
Oh man, and this becomes a little bit problematic because now Harstem, he does still have quite a few storms left over, but his 4th base has been delayed for so long.
Insisting on this 4th base. I really don't like this 4th base at this point. It's been cancelled, what, 3 times, 4 times? To Harstem's credit, he is building a strong army. He will proceed to try to get maxed. Once he does that, maybe he stands a chance no matter what, but Stephano is going to start getting maxed and building a bank.
Yeah, and on top of that, he's got his Hive Tech, he's got a Spire on the way. We know where this goes, cats, and there's a game that they played out exactly like this where Stephano just kind of rolled over Harstem because he got up to the Broodlords and Harstem just didn't have anything to really answer, but here we go.
Harstem is working on an answer, but can he afford said answer? All of the units that he has are awful against Broodlords. Broodlords rely on their high, extremely long range, right? And most of the units that Harstem has either don't attack air or are extremely short-ranged. So, yeah, this could be really nasty.
He does have a Fleet Beacon now finished up, but he only has, I believe, that single Stargate, so he's not going to be getting out Tempests or Carriers in large numbers anytime all that soon. He's going to have a Mothership, sure, but that is only so helpful if, again, like you said, you can't really close the distance.
Yeah, continuing to insist on this base, but I mean, he can't position his units in a good position because if he moves too far forward, he doesn't see the units coming in, and then Stephano can easily retreat into the high ground where Harstem would lose vision if Stephano was to retreat and kite him up the high ground, right? Until you gain vision up that ramp. And you can't be too far back. If we look back at the 4th base, you can't position too far back because then Stephano is going to flank you and it will be just as if he was coming from every angle possible, even though he's just coming from 2 ramps.
Okay, well, Baneling's going off on top of the Archons, but the Immortals are kind of getting caught by the Hydras, and they still managed to make it work, though. Harstem taking a pretty decent engagement here, and at the same time, it did seem like Stephano was able to clean up a handful of those Zealots moving out from Harstem on the north side. Harstem able to establish that fourth base once again. A couple of Lings may be able to do some damage there, but Harstem is finally breaking a little bit free.
A risky maneuver by Harstem. He goes in to engage half of the army of Stephano, knowing that it's split. Stephano engages Harstem's army before the rest of his army can flank Harstem's army from behind. So Harstem essentially gets two engagements where he has the bigger army against either side. Whereas if Stephano had been able to wait a little bit, pull a little bit further off of creep to wait for the back of his army to show up, that would have been an easy cleanup. Harstem is going to go for the base trading type situation. He's going to get his fourth cancelled one more time, and he's had enough. He will cut the blood supply of Stephano at the third as he warps in to try to defend. This is a Hail Mary to try to defend from Harstem. He could still recall after taking a base or two. That might be enough to defend.
Recall's on cooldown, though, for another 5 or 10 seconds, so he's just got to continue to do the damage. And the Broodlords are here. He has no answer to them.
He has absolutely no answer. He's going to have to run back. If Harstem knew where the rest of the bases were for Stephano. Will this be enough? If he can clean this up, maybe he stands a chance.
But he's got to clean this up, and he's got to get an answer to the Broodlords. He's lost 33 workers. He's on a timer. Mothership is now out. He's got some Zealots that have reinforced. His fourth base did manage to survive, but he needs to do something right now. Cats, there is a huge timer that is ticking down for Stephano's victory.
3 Tempests is, I believe, the number that you need to want. Oh no, that's old, right?
No, that's a very long time ago.
Yeah.
Oh, that base is going to go down as well as a lot of
ton of. Oh, nasty.
Okay, well, the Lings do start to fall. There's not that much of a frontline buffer for this army of Stephano, so he's got to back up. I like that Harstem is still segmenting off a couple of these Zealots. He knows that he has to do damage from a lot of different places all at the same time. The Broodlords not going to be great at defending versus Zealots because they're so far out of position.
Yeah, they will have to pull back, which is a win in itself for Harstem. I mean, the Broodlords having to go back as slowly as they are just to deal with this Zealot. It's not ideal for Stephano. At least he doesn't reveal the position of his Broodlords, which is information that Harstem could take to make moves elsewhere on the map.
Oh man, I would love if Harstem just left his Mothership somewhere because it gives him an additional recall if he needs it. But now it's just going to be with the army, and there is that cloak field, but the Overseers are here, the Broodlords are here. I
don't know about this. I'm not liking it too much for Harstem. The Broodlords stand tall. There's only 1 Tempest left.
GG. And Stephano takes the series 2-1, advances out to the playoffs. He's your final player for WCS EU Challenger.
Yeah, well fought by Stephano, well fought by Harstem. I mean, 2-1 on 2 instances. What a series this was overall by the 2 veterans.
Yeah, both of these players have been around. I mean, all the players have been around for at least some period of time. All of them are tournament victors at some point of another for a premier event. But Stephano, I think he's got that X factor that you were talking about. And sometimes he doesn't really show up. Sometimes it seems like Stephano truly is that semi-retired player. And sometimes he shows up and you're like, wow, he is still Stephano. He can come out from any time in any time period, 5-10 years from now, he could still just come out and say, yeah, you know what, I still got it.
To Stephano's credit, I think we saw a little bit more adaptation, especially towards those last 2 games. The Hydra Bane worked well for him. He goes back into Hydra Bane, right? The lurkers stopped working for him, essentially. He was willing to change. Harstem, more or less doing the same thing over and over. If Stephano got a read, it becomes hard. And that fourth, man, I really feel like he should have taken the other fourth at that point in time. But hey.
Yeah, that was hard to watch.
What was that, 4 or 5 times canceled? Again, it was such a difficult position. Stephano was always going to come from too big of an angle or have the high ground advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see the other fourth base is also pretty rough just because you end up getting into a position where it's a big, wide open area as well. But either way, we do end up seeing that Stephano takes the victory. And in case you guys missed out on any of the previous matches, we had a laser going into that winners match immediately with a 2-1 over Mana. We had Stephano taking the 2-1 over Harstem. And the first time they face off against each other, as well as the second time as we just saw. We had Harstem taking the 2-1 versus Mana. And of course, Laser walking out, and he is the other player that advanced out of this group. So we had Stephano and a Laser, our 2 Zerg players, knocking out our 2 Protoss players.
Why are you looking at me like that, Ravi? You're just like...
I'm a Protoss player, and I'm
a
looking
Zerg
at the
player,
Zerg
so
player. I'm just kidding.
You want to fight, bro?
Well, of course, that does set things up just because we now know our 8 players who have advanced on to the playoffs. Of course, they're going to be joining the likes of a Laser as well as, of course, Stephano. But yeah, if you guys aren't familiar, of course, with the format, we are just finishing up the group stages. This is Group D. We had 16 players that were playing in the group stages. Each group had 4 players, and there were 4 groups. That means that with Group D finished up, we are ready to advance on to the playoffs in about 2 weeks' time. That's when European Challengers playoffs are going to be played out.
I believe we just saw 2 Germans, we saw 2 Polish players, and we saw 2 French players. So maybe in contention for some of the strongest nations there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Challenger is the place that we get to find and see who are the players who are the best in their region at the given time, almost as a preface for when we get to see these big events like WCS Austin that's coming up. So
and Europe is stacked, man. I mean, some of these players like Harstem, for example, he could win the whole event. I wouldn't be surprised if he just showed up to Premier and won the event. And that really speaks to the depth of these players, to not make it out of the group, to almost make it out 4th, actually. Just a crazy high level of competition right now.
Indeed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be going to a short little break in a little bit. But first, of course, I want to remind you guys that NA Challenger is coming up right after this. We're going to be finishing up NA Group D, which I am looking forward to. We got players like Puck. We got players like Raze, No Regret, Bio Ice. So many stories between all 4 of these guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. True NA madness coming up for WCS NA Challenger.
So
this poor town has seen its share of trouble.